and welcome to the inaugural Sheffield Gaming Podcast, a show that is designed to bring together all those who play, work and love games in this lovely city of ours. Every month we will be letting you know about all of the gaming events and goings-on in the city, as well as offering a bit of an inside track and a look at some of your favourite gaming places in Sheffield. From the National Video Game Museum to Treehouse Board Game Cafe to Extra Life Gaming Lounge to Meltdown Esports Bar and hopefully loads more as we continue to grow. My name is Connor Clark. I'm from the National Video Game Museum, and today I am joined by...
Matt Turner from Treehouse Board Game Cafe.
Mike Beman from Extra Life Gaming Lounge.
Kitty Turner, also from National Video Game Museum.
Ace, thank you all for joining me today. How are we all?
Doing very well, thank you.
All right, yeah.
Pretty good.
Excited to get this thing kicked off.
Yeah, it should be really exciting. And like I said, this is the first one. Hopefully it kind of grows into something. First off, though, I want to kind of talk about what upcoming events we have in Sheffield. First thing, actually, I want to ask you about, Kitty, because it is the Geeky Craft Market.
Yep, so the Geeky Craft Market is a collection of local makers, all who make things relating to geeky stuff, video games being one part of that, but also, you know, sci-fi, fantasy, computers, well, anything geeky like that. So this is going to be the second market, and it's going to be on the 1st of February. So not this Saturday, the Saturday afterwards. It's free entry. It's going to be a cross-venue market, so it's happening at Extra Life Gaming Lounge and Meltdown Gaming Bar. So you can pop your head into both, check out the store holders at each one, and we look forward to seeing people there.
Ace. I mean, how did this kind of market come about? 'Cause you've organised it, is that right?
Yeah. It was an idea I had sort of last year, I guess, because I make pixel art with hammer beads myself.
Okay.
And for a while, I sold these at a regular monthly gaming night in Sheffield. Don't know if anybody has heard of or remembers Game Over. But when that ceased to be a monthly thing to do with video games, I believe they now do a monthly thing to do with board games. I was just sort of looking for somewhere to sell my stuff and
Ply your trade.
Yeah. I just got the idea of finding other people who want to do the same and get them all together. Turns out that there's actually quite a lot of people who do that kind of stuff, and they do struggle to sell such niche stuff at regular craft markets.
Yep.
And it's just really nice seeing all the kinds of things people have made. Last time we had some people with jewelry made from upcycled computer parts.
I've seen that stuff before. It looks
Pretty
really
rad.
good.
Yeah, there was some really cool like crochet stuff. This lady had made this epic Tetris blanket of crochet stuff. Illustrators, 3D printing stuff. There's all sorts of things going on. I'm really looking forward to this one because it's going to be bigger than the last one. We're going to have 2 venues instead of just one.
Yes.
And we've got some repeat store holders. Most of them are new, fresh to the market, and yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you said two venues. I think, Mike, that you're involved now?
Yes, we'll be hosting a few of those stalls at Extra Life Gaming Lounge, which we're really looking forward to, because it'll be the first kind of thing like that we've done since opening. So obviously we've been open about 7 months now, and this will be the first kind of geeky craft fair type thing that will be going off. And one of the big things is it also raises money for charity, which is a huge bonus for that, I think.
Yes, that's right. It's Special Effects, I believe it raises money for as well.
Yeah, so Special Effects is a charity that builds custom sort of gaming hardware for people with disabilities or any other kind of like difficulty that would prevent them from being able to use standardized controllers, that kind of thing. And when I was thinking about putting this market together, Special Effect just seems like the perfect fit, really, the obvious choice if we were going to make it a fundraiser. And they've been really positive. They've been really on board. Yeah.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Awesome. So, I think is it right? There's a theme for this one because it's February. There's some events coming up in the year, so this one's themed, right?
So this is the 2-player edition. So while it is in February, it's not strictly a Valentine's event, as it were. But I suspect there may be some couples poking around for presents, possibly. But also the fact that it's both Extra Life and Meltdown. It's a nice opportunity to sort of like share each individual community within those venues and introduce them to each other. We're really hoping that the people who are quite familiar with Extra Life will just go check out Meltdown and vice versa.
Always that community matchmaking.
Yeah, and it's nice to be actually working with Meltdown on something, 'cause it's something that we've discussed several times now, but have never been able to quite iron out any details of how we can work together on something. So it's good to be doing that kind of, I won't say cross-promotion, but cooperation between both sides as well.
I'm excited to just get all that stuff in one place. One of the best parts about going to MCM and Comic Cons and all sorts of conventions is the fact that you get to browse stalls where like almost nothing you go past isn't going to be of interest to you. Yes. Whereas you can go through all sorts of markets and have and be like, all right, I don't want to buy another T-shirt with a skull on it. I've got enough of those. But I'm really excited to sort of like poke around and just have that experience without having to travel and go to a convention and have all that sort of scenario play out where I'm stressed because I've got to figure out my itinerary for the weekend. I don't know. Is this just me?
No.
Is this how I do MCM or Comic Cons and stuff?
I'm exactly the same. I've been doing the MCM Comic Cons for about 9 years now, and the first time I took my partner with me, I was like, right, well, this is the plan. We're going here. These talks are there and there. She's like, is it really that strict? I was like, yes, we're not missing any of this.
I need to see all the information. Every time an actor says, well, it was just really, really great to work with him. Like every single time an actor says that, then we need to be there.
Exactly.
I think I'm the opposite. I think I just wander around looking for the smallest cube.
That's fair. In fact, that's how I first played Halo 4.
Yeah, see?
The first stop for me with any convention is, right, let me get the schedule. I need to know what's going on and when, and then I can write down my plan for each day.
Yeah.
That's fair. It's really handy. But importantly, like the whole, going past a bunch of illustrators and that sort of thing, it's like the bread and butter of that experience. And I think the market's gonna hopefully, I don't know, I haven't been to one before, so I'm really excited for this one. Hopefully bring out that same situation where I spend more money than I intended, but I end up with everything I could have dreamt of.
Is there anything you're looking for a player 2? Does anyone have a player 2 in mind that they might want to pick something up for?
Possibly, but I don't want to say anything in case he's listening.
It's tough, isn't it? Like those like especially like physical objects and stuff. I mean, I don't know what to expect. I think part of the reason you go somewhere rather than just going online is to be kind of have that browsing experience. I think the best presents I've ever received are always like the kind of the personal ones, or things like that you've been going on about something and then someone gets you art from it or illustration or that sort of thing. You said there were 3D printers as well.
One of our store holders does do 3D printed stuff. So that should be quite interesting.
So awesome.
It might be able to make you like a custom something, perhaps.
I don't know. That would be awesome. My go-to present for friends is either commissioning art or getting custom miniatures for their D&D characters.
Oh, cool!
Yeah,
like making someone but 3D and only an inch tall.
Yes, exactly. The fun, like I don't know, the fun of that is if it's for their D&D character, then you wouldn't buy it for yourself because of course that character might die tomorrow. But as a present, it goes a long way because then you've got that little souvenir forever.
Ace. cool, a nice little avatar. Sweet. I mean, so I always do like to play. Maybe it's kind of a bit of a stereotype, but I do actually like to buy my partner video games. I like to play kind of video games together as well. Recently, actually, we played through. It's not a co-op game, but we played through Telling Lies, which is it's like this FMV video game.
Yes. Is that
Yeah.
is that the same people as Her Story? Or
Yes. Yeah. It's those same people, and it's like it's not a cooperative game, but it's just one that you can kind of sit on like the sofa and kind of play through it, because you have to like search. You get a load of videos, and you have to like search through the videos to find key phrases or something to try and unravel this mystery that's happening. And it's such a brilliant game to kind of play with.
To pick that apart and analyze it together and sort of cross-reference your experiences.
I love the fact that FMV games are now coming back in, because I was a huge fan of them in the 90s. Like the really cheesy nav stuff like Night Trap and Command and Conquer and stuff like that.
Oh, the Commander and Conquer ones are fantastic.
Never forget Tim Curry.
Yes, absolutely. I can't even remember the quote. All I remember is going, "In space."
I'm going to the one place that capitalism hasn't corrupted.
That's the one.
Space.
Amazing.
My favourite like 2-player co-op game has to be the Divinity series, the original Sin. They are so amazing to play co-op because essentially you can just kind of go off and do what you want. And as long as you're in the same sort of area, and you can really just you can end up in a situation where one of you has progressed the story and one of you has essentially been messing about creating fish stew, and that you get back and you're like, why are these how have these like world-changing events transpired since I started making this fish stew? And actually the best thing about it is it like convinces you that you've got to communicate what you're doing between the two of you, or more. I think you go up to 4, which I can't imagine, because it's such a chaotic game. But no, I've really enjoyed that. I mean, I love kind of CRPGs and that sort of thing. Really looking forward to the next Baldur's Gate, which is the same guy as Larian.
I hope they keep the split screen option.
Yes.
The fact that this all works via split screen as well, and local co-op is amazing.
Makes it really accessible to consoles as well. Like we're playing Land up on PC, but the fact that you're able to do it on console, have that kind of CRPG experience, and really explore that is really great.
Nice. So
I think I'm probably the same as you, Connor.
Yep.
Because my favourite games are the Telltale series. So me and the boyfriend will sit there, and whenever we get a new one, whoever didn't play the last one first gets to play it first while the other person watches, you know, for spoilers and whatnot. And it is so interesting seeing how somebody else plays the game, the decisions they make and what have you, because obviously it has an impact on relationships with the characters and what happens, and that is a lot of fun. Normally
psychoanalyzing them, saying, "Really, you'd let them go?
Why would you do that?" It was very eye-opening watching him play The Wolf Among Us, which is one of the darker ones. There's a little part of me just like, I can't believe, why would you? Oh, yeah, it's so much fun though. It's a lot of fun.
It's a great experience though. I'm sure he will remember that. Nice touch. The timers on those decisions though, right?
Terrifying.
You can't debate between you. You can't like really co-op that game. It has to be one person in the driving seat, because otherwise you end up doing nothing for the whole game.
I've played the game like that, and I panic. So I'm sat there with my partner, and like a timer will come up, like go left or go right, and I'm like, tell me what to do. What do I do? And I'm the one holding the controller. But I won't make a move until they tell me what I need to do, because I don't want that guilt of making the wrong decision.
The Telltale Game of Thrones, I was very much a silent protagonist in that, because I could never decide what to do before Peter Dinklage told me off.
So I made the mistake. Well, not the mistake, but I thought, you know what, don't get much time to play video games now, so when I get home from work, got a spare hour or so, I'll play The Wolf Among Us. Nice, chilled out. Just sit back.
Yeah, nice and chill.
And then I tend to have this issue and all that when you get the prompts come up to hit such and such a button quick, all of a sudden I forget the complete layout of a pad. It can be completely fine up until then, until it tells me, right, press this button. Where's that button gone? Where's it gone?
Where's A gone? I'm on PS4. Oh, no.
So on the same day, so this market is on the 1st of February. On the same day at Meltdown, there is actually another event going on, which is the Steel City Chiptune gig, which is a chiptune gig, which is super cool and exciting. Kitty, you went across to the last one, is that right?
Yes.
What was it like?
Harley, who has arranged the gig, always puts on amazing gigs.
Yep.
He finds these people all over the place, and when he sticks them all in one place, it's just absolutely mind-blowing, because obviously it's all chiptune, but it also all sounds so different. There's some really cool artists there. I've not actually heard of the people who are playing this one. It doesn't matter. I've already bought my ticket. I've bought my ticket for my boyfriend. I've already bought my ticket and one for my boyfriend as well, because I know we are both just going to love it. We'll be there up at the front. It's interesting because you can sort of hear lots of different sort of genre inspirations. Like, you can't just say like, oh, it's chiptune. What is that? Is that going to be like drum and bass or something? It's just like, it's not quite as simple as that. There really is like some really interesting and quite novel musical ideas just within that genre itself. Absolutely brilliant. Can't wait for it.
Yeah,
it's going to be a long day for me, but that doesn't even matter. I will be there.
Straight from the market, straight into that.
Pretty much.
For those that are unaware, chiptune is it's essentially music made using a video game sound chip from various consoles. So often these are Game Boys, and they make Game Boy music. So it sounds like the music you'd have when you were playing your Game Boy games. But I've had a quick look at the running order or what's going to be going on the Steel City Chiptune gig, and they've actually got a couple of guys making it from the Mega Drive as well. Making Mega Drive
amazing.
Yeah, I did have a quick listen, and it's like the Sonic the Hedgehog soundtrack you never had, but even better.
Brilliant.
So it's really, really cool.
They managed to make that pretty good with Sonic Mania. Those new tracks that they made that are just like brand new things that just sounded
the soundtrack
almost like those zones, but just are just fit in perfectly. The Mega Drive had a fantastic sound chip. It was incredible. I was listening to the Mega Drive version of the Gods, by Into the Wonderful is the name of the track by what were they called? Bitmap Brothers. Yeah. In fact, I think we spoke about this last time we spoke.
Yes.
But yeah, that like whole thing. The Amiga had this one version of it which had all these like samples in, and then they condensed it into this Mega Drive version, and it's just this whole brand new level of instrumentation. And I think that's the best thing you can get out of it. Well, one of the best feelings from chiptune is that it's not even like just a genre. It isn't like you were saying, Kitty. It's not just a genre. It's a whole new tier of instrumentation. Like it's as much a genre as
guitar music.
Exactly. Exactly. Like pianos. It very much kind of like. Just because something has, I don't know, a violin and a piano and a guitar, you might be like, well, that's folk. Those are three instruments. Same thing with chiptune. I think it's really interesting the range you can find on there with that sort of stuff.
I think it's brilliant how you're taking this technology, which is knocking on 30, 40 years old now, and finding new uses for it. Sort of thing, which, I mean, granted, with being a retro collector, you're always going for like the old stuff and just reusing it for that original purpose, but to find a really cool way to repurpose it as well, it was really cool.
I mean, they used to say as well that that era of video game soundtracks were the most iconic as well, and they're the ones that you can kind of still go back to now. I'm not fully sure that's the case now though, because I've been playing a load of more contemporary games that have some wicked soundtracks.
It does depend, doesn't it? I think for a little while, film did the same thing, which is to say, went away from theme.
Yeah.
And then like it started to come back with things like Lord of the Rings, where you've got like the Shire theme and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with games, where aside from like standout things like Halo and things like that, where you hear the name and immediately you're humming the tune in your head. There are like you go back as far as N64, and you've got like your Banjo-Kazooies have like these very iconic soundtracks, because the carts had these very specific restrictions on how much information you could put on there, and then like Skipper, we got into this sort of like, okay, we're all going onto DVDs, and now we can put full orchestral soundtracks on. We'll just sound like movies, and there's not a lot of definition there. You can't really remember, let's say, what God of War 1 sounded like.
It was definitely that kind of, I think it was that kind of PlayStation 2 era as well, when suddenly it was like, okay, video games are kind of big business now, big money, and they can get like big composers in. I remember Metal Gear Solid 2 got kind of Harry Gregson Williams in to do the soundtrack, and that soundtrack's fantastic. I love it, but it's very much a film soundtrack.
Yes,
it's just kind of whereas Hideo Kojima, he does films.
Absolutely.
Obviously, some people will argue Metal Gear Solid 2 isn't not really a game. But like it was. I think it was the PS1 was like the last kind of bastion of really good kind of that.
But even then, you started seeing things like the Prodigy-driven soundtracks or things like Wipeout and stuff like that, music and stuff like that, which was.
Oh man,
that was cool.
I haven't listened to that in a while. I'm probably gonna have to go back and listen to that now. But now recently, like especially with the indie explosion and all that sort of stuff, we've really started to come back to a position where soundtracks are becoming very, very important to the heart of games. In fact, I was playing Watam, with my partner actually. And that has very much like its spiritual predecessor, the Katamari series, has a beating heart of a soundtrack. It's very much there's a song at its core, and then everything else sort of like orbits out, and you can really feel the soul of that game. But the whole thing, you can't stop yourself grinning. Just like joy. There's just pure childlike joy in your heart, no matter when you are, because it's just this kind of like someone's constantly humming a happy little tune, or just like there are so few games that I feel like have like that really maintain that innocence and that joy to them. And I think I think you are right though, that that's starting to come back in now.
I finished it last night. I finished Celeste, the platformer, the 2D hard as nails platformer that you have to climb a mountain, and that's the soundtrack to that is spectacular, and very chiptune kind of inspired, I feel, as well. Definitely kind of worth a listen to. Hey, before we move on, I do just want to give a big thank you to Harley, who is organising the Steel City Chiptune gig. He's also provided the music for our intro and outro to this podcast, and it is amazing, and probably a nice, slight little teaser as to what to expect on that evening. So the next event I wanted to chat about with everyone is actually happening on the 8th and 9th of February, the week afterwards. And it's actually a global event with some kind of offshoots happening here in Sheffield. It's the Global Game Jam. Has anybody come across this before, the Global Game Jam?
I'll be honest, I haven't.
I've come across game jams before, the concept of them.
Yes.
But not this specific one.
So this one it's kind of, I think it has like 50,000 people that kind of take part in this game jam all across the world.
Holy moly!
Yeah, so a game jam is essentially a group of people get together, and over 48 hours they are given a theme, and over 48 hours they have to create a game in 48 hours. And often those are video games, but they don't have to be. They can be board games, they can be card games, they can be kind of anything that you want to make, really, all inspired by this theme, and you can do it on your own, you can do it as a group. So I do know that there are 2 events happening in the city. Over at Sheffield Hallam University, Tom Batty is running one of these events. He's got already about 40 people that are going to go along to it. It is also open as well, so if anybody's in Sheffield and thinking, oh, I want to create a game. You can just kind of, go over and contact Tom, send him an email, say, oh, am I okay to come along? And you are. And there's also one happening over at the Hillsborough campus of Sheffield College as well. One really exciting thing that I'm quite excited about is that once they make this game on the 8th and 9th of February, we've actually invited some of them, if they want to exhibit the game the week afterwards at the National Video Game Museum, which would be really cool, like, seeing these in progress, kind of small scale kind of games, but they've got some really fascinating ideas in them. And it's really nice to showcase Sheffield games as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that's really cool. I love the idea that it's open and accessible.
Yeah.
I heartily encourage anyone who has no or little experience making games to try your hand at making a board game. I know I'm going to be sticking up here for the for kind of like the board game part, given as I do, being of course Matt from the Treehouse Board Game Cafe, my full name. But it's easier to not that making board games is easier. The game design aspect of that, though, is transferable. And I think one of the great things about game jams is that it shows just how transferable and as specific a skill game design is outside of the trappings of technology. I think the idea of empathizing with a player's perspective of how something's going to unfold, understanding the decisions that they're going to make and in what order, is something that transfers. So I don't know much about the video game, getting into the video game industry. I'm not your guy for that. But what I do know is that making board games is accessible. And your first one might not be amazing, but the best thing about game jams is that that's the point. Is that you have 48 hours. The barrier to entry is very low. The expectation is also very low. And so if you just do it, you'll not regret actually putting in and kind of working creatively with that medium.
Yeah, and I imagine, like you were saying, Matt, obviously you've got the analog part of it, or the creating your own board game sort of thing, initially would probably seem a lot less daunting than like with other game jams where it's specifically just at digital games. You think, well, where would I even begin with that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What do I use, sort of thing? Whereas I imagine that's, like I said, a lot less daunting, a lot more accessible.
Get yourself some pens, some Sharpies, some cardboard, and some scissors, and you can start. That's amazing to me. Is that games don't have to be. We talk that there are so many associated disciplines with video games. There's sound, kind of sound editing, sound design. There's obviously the stuff we always automatically think of, which is graphics, right? But the reason that video game credits take so long is that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people involved in the creation of them, all of whom have their own specific discipline, and those are things you can learn and start to work towards. But you've got to take the first step somewhere, and one of those things should be a greater awareness of just how games flow. And I can't think of a better place to do that, in my opinion, than board games, than analog gaming, than literally picking something up and moving something elsewhere, and your decision as to where you move that thing being the first step that you would take on making a game. So do the thing.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying.
Do the thing. Do the thing. It's also it's got a really open vibe to it. This global game jam, and it's just kind of come in and you might be able to, even if you don't make a game yourself, you might help someone out or join a team of people. It's a fully creative thing, which is just really exciting. It's not a competition in any way. And if you want to exhibit your game afterwards or kind of show your game, you can put it on their website. Everyone can play them. You've got an audience of thousands there that can go and play your game. Your little game that you made in 48 hours as well.
That's so cool.
It is.
Yeah.
What I say is probably the most terrifying thing about it, though, is that it's a themed thing, and there is always a theme every year about what the game should be about. So partly to act as a creative kind of instigator, but they don't tell you the theme until the second it starts.
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, a blank canvas is the death of like creativity, right? Like you need to be focused in on something, right? Which, of course, that's great because if someone just says paint a picture, you're like, you'll spend 8 hours trying to figure out exactly what it is you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. Whereas if someone says paint a picture of a dog, you can start immediately. And the same I think will be true of this. Although not knowing until then, you rock up, you turn up and you're like, okay, ready to do this. And then they say, well, the theme is post-colonialism. And you're like, I've got to look that up. I really don't think that's going to be the theme.
It's the first 36 hours reading. I've got an idea.
But honestly, honestly, Connor, if you're planning on doing this, I think that it's not going to be post-colonialism.
Probably not. No.
I think it's probably going to be a little more accessible than that.
Previous ones, I think they've had waves. Or ritual was a theme.
Oh, that's right.
So yeah, there's a couple of really. I've played a couple of those as well. A couple of those games made from ritual, and they're really fun. Often kind of like quite small experiences as well. So if you want like a 5-minute game to play on a lunch break, do that.
Nice.
Yeah, like the idea of making 2 to 3 decisions, just trying out as almost like a toy, and then going, I've had this experience, and that was made for me in 48 hours by some super talented people. Yeah, so cool.
And the ability to showcase some of Sheffield's actual talent in Sheffield as well, I think, is a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's happening all across the world. But we want to showcase, Sheffield, what's made in these kind of city boundaries, which is great. Does anyone have a favourite Sheffield game? A game that was made in Sheffield, right here?
I suppose I have to say, Outrun. Coast to Coast.
Yeah. So obviously Sumo Digital created I think the Xbox port for Outrun, didn't they? Outrun 2. That
was it. Yeah. We did a recent competition on that one as well, which I think you were gutted you couldn't get to, Connor, at that point.
I love that game. Outrun 2006 is just it's still so good now. It's like I think it's gotten better since it got released. It's one of those games that its simplicity is just perfect.
And the brilliant thing in all is we were running it on multiple machines at the CAF, so we had the Outrun soundtrack running all over the CAF that night. It was brilliant.
I mean, Sumo is such a massive kind of monolith on the Sheffield gaming landscape. Yeah. I mean, like I spent weeks playing Team Sonic Racing, just because it's like it's so endearing. Like the whole thing, like Sumo have this way of making games that you wouldn't expect to have been made in Sheffield. It's just that they are a part of the AAA industry, like those high budget games that like you look around Sheffield and a lot of the perception of Sheffield is that like that something like that wouldn't have come from Sheffield.
Yeah, totally.
But there it is, right? And I think that's kind of part of what we're trying to do here is to say, like, by the way, there's this like secret undercurrent of really, really huge amount of talent in Sheffield, and people should be paying attention to that.
Yeah. It's underground. We're not letting you know about it. It's bad marketing. I think I remember I posted one about Hogs of War. I posted that on the National Video Game Museum kind of social channel, saying like, it's a great Sheffield game. It's Hogs of War. Nobody could believe that was from Sheffield. Like, oh my god, I love that game. I remember growing up with that game.
Didn't it have Craig Charles in it?
It had Rick Mail.
Rick Mail.
Yeah, he was the voices. He did a lot of the voices for that game, and it had a lot of his humour because of it. And it was already because it was very much like a Worms like. It was Worms, but it was 3D. But because they brought Rick Mail in, it just had that extra edge to it. Like Worms is a funny game. I like Worms. Yeah. But Hogs of War was slightly more closer to the bone, I suppose.
Yeah. A little had that edge that you wanted in the 90s.
Yeah.
I think mine would have to be Gang Beasts.
Yeah.
What a game
that is a fantastic
I think
game.
mainly because it's quite simple.
Yep.
And its mechanics. We have it in the National Video Game Museum. I really, really like seeing how excited the kids get when they see that it's there.
Yeah.
I really like seeing adults who've never picked up a game before be able to sit down and play Gang Beasts. And I like the fact that it doesn't look like a lot of the AAA games that people, bug their parents for Christmas presents and stuff like that. It kind of closes the gap between the idea that anyone can make a game and games should always look really shiny and polished and expensive. It's just, it's basic mechanic that anybody can pick up, and you get the idea. It's just a super accessible game, and it's super fun, like really fun.
It looks kind of it looks clumsy. I don't think anything about it is clumsy. I think it's all highly calculated, but it looks so kind of clumsy. Like, what have is this been made in 48 hours? No, it's not. It's a well-worked game.
It looks clumsy because the game isn't clumsy, but the theme is clumsy. The idea that these creatures. I mean, Gang Beasts. For those who haven't played it or seen it played, essentially you are in control of basically Morph. From attack, this chubby morph, and you can control individually the grip of their hands, and also whether their hands are up or down, kind of like bending double or kind of lying down or sort of like reaching for the sky and that sort of thing. And your aim is basically to be the last person standing. You get a group of friends together. You're in this one arena that has either saw blades, or you're on top of a truck that's going at high speed down a freeway, and essentially all you're doing is holding on to surfaces and then trying to throw each other off those surfaces. And
that's definitely the fun of just sort of wobbling around a sort of unstable environment, trying to throw each other around, trying not to get thrown off yourself. It's it can get a bit mad.
I think I've heard it described as if John Woo made a video game with animated jelly babies.
Yes, absolutely. I just want some slow motion effects in it now, when you're kind of just clumsily kind of trying to headbutt someone off of the side of a building.
I've heard it referred to as Battle Quap.
Quap.
Quap, the old Flash game where you used to
Bennett
control.
Body.
Yeah, Bennett Body. Oh my goodness, I forgot he made Getting Over It as well.
He did, same as
And Strange
GURP.
Mind. I haven't played that. What's that about?
So GURP is like Quap. So Quap is this athletic game where you have to run 100 meters, but you control the knees and the feet and the legs, and it's impossible. I think the furthest I've ever gone is 10 meters without falling over.
It's called Quap because of the keys you use to do those controls, right?
Yeah, that's right. So GURP was the kind of spiritual sequel to Quap, which is the same, but you're a rock climber and you have to climb using the letters G, I, R, and P, and you have to hold on to certain ones so you don't let go of the rock, whilst then using other ones to reach up to grab hold of the rock. And it's, oh my god, it's so hard. But that's the joy of that game, and actually the joy is failing at it. It's just kind of falling from 10 meters down into the sea. So,
but I really do think Gang Beasts did kind of create its own little cottage industry in that way, because Gang Beasts sort of came out, and it was obviously in early access for quite a while, and had this whole process. And then from there, you have games like Human Fall Flat, which is basically Gang Beasts, but you're trying to traverse a difficult platforming environment and do some physics puzzles with friends, and all these different games where essentially part of it is this disconnect between what you expect to be able to do with a humanoid avatar in a game and what you can do because you have to control the parts of the character that you don't have to think about. And I think it's pretty inspiring how Gang Beasts sort of contributed certainly to that. Like, there are so many games that kind of use that a similar function to that.
It's one of those games that's as fun to watch as it is to play. As well.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to be playing to understand how silly it is to watching these blobby, chubby morphs wander around a boxing ring.
You guys must have so much fun with games like that. Like being in an environment where you get to watch people play video games a lot.
It's really cool to.
And watch the kids. Yeah, kids adore it. I think it's after the kids been on it for like an hour. It's like there are other games in the museum. But that's definitely one that people spend most of the time on. Okay, so what else is going on in Sheffield? Well, it's actually slightly out of Sheffield, looking kind of broader across Yorkshire. Later on, between the 5th and 9th of February, there is also the Yorkshire Games Festival is happening over at the Bradford Science and Media Museum. The festival's been going on a few years now, and it's super successful now, and they get loads of really cool, exciting things are happening. At the festival this year, Mike Bithell is going to be there. He made Thomas Was Alone, which is kind of his a standout hit, but he also recently made the John Wick game, John Wick Heck.
That's really good.
So he's going to be there to talk about the creation of John Wick Hex. Rare are going to be there to talk about Sea of Thieves, which should be fascinating.
Nice.
Rare is a Leicester or Derby-based game development studio as well. And Team 17 from Wakefield are going to be there to talk about quality assurance testing in QA games. It's a whole kind of broad range of talks, which is really exciting. The one I wanted to talk about, and the one I thought was really, really interesting, is there is a talk by the British Esports Association all about the future of British esports and how to get into esports. So what I kind of wanted to ask was, everyone, if you had to pick a game to do as an esports, pick a game to play competitively, what would it be? Mike, I'll throw it over to you. What's the game that you'd want to play competitively?
Competitively, I would probably say either Halo or a Street Fighter game.
Halo or Street Fighter?
Yes. Easy to access, but quite difficult to master and get good at.
Which Halo in particular?
Reach would have to be my choice.
It's just come out on PC actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried playing that. Played a lot of Halo 3 back in the day, and to the point where I was trying to be competitive, and I got to Halo Reach on PC. 15 years later or whatever it was, probably a little bit less than that, and I'm rubbish. I am rubbish at that game.
It's so much faster on PC. I've tried playing it on PC as well, and I used to be not bad at Reach. Like I probably wouldn't pick that to be my competitive game because I still was, I died a lot. But
I won't claim
PC,
to be any good
so
at it
much faster.
whatsoever. But it's one of those things that when Reach came out, I was there was a group of us who would meet up for what we used to call Sunday morning Halo, up online sort of thing, and it was meant to be we'd meet up around about 8 o'clock and play till 12 in the afternoon sort of thing as a little Sunday morning. And it always went on from 8 in the morning until 9, 10 at night. It just ended up being a huge Halo Reach marathon through all of it, every game mode, whatever we could think of. Weird game modes that we'd find in the creator modes and stuff like that. It was really good fun.
Oh yeah, the Forge mode in
Yeah.
Halo games is fantastic. Kind of making a game thing in there.
Making the maps. Oh my goodness, that's bringing back like flashbacks to just like huge parts of my life where I just spent time trying to place a girder at a 90-degree angle.
I think you just like kind of replicated that kind of early morning events at your Extra Life, haven't you? Gaming Lounge.
A similar thing. We do a Saturday morning cartoons.
Saturday morning cartoons.
So we, being the huge nerd I am and being really big into things like Transformers and Thundercats and stuff like that, we every Saturday morning between 8 and 12 we'll choose a retro cartoon and run with that.
Does that run until 9 o'clock at the evening when you suddenly get really into Transformers? I've got to see the next episode.
It may go over the 12 o'clock mark, but that might be more for my benefit than anyone else a lot of the time.
Ace. So, Kitty, if you had to pick one game to play competitively, what would it be?
I mean, I wish I could play Telltale games competitively, but I mean, Telltale games are they're narrative games. You click through a story, and it's a non-linear kind of thing. So whichever path you take goes to a different place, which doesn't really work. There isn't a win or a lose there. It sounds boring. I'd probably have to go with Mario Kart. I feel like that I don't consider myself a competitive person at all, but I remember reaching a certain age and somebody said, "Oh, do you want to play some of this?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing." And I think it's because I started getting close to the front. I was like, "Oh, I could win this!" And all of a sudden, I was just feeling that I want to win. So I'd probably go for that one.
It's such an accessible game.
I
think it's one of those few games you can kind of give anyone a controller and just say, "Oh, you just steer left and right." And then, within 5 minutes, they're like, "Oh, give me that! Where's that? Give me that bullet! Oh, you with that red shell!" It's Mario Kart's so good like that. So.
As long as you're not playing with like one other person who's incredibly like, either you need to be reasonably well matched in terms of ability to enjoy it properly. Because if someone's leaving you in the dust, or if you're leaving someone else in the dust, it doesn't feel like quite as fun. But yeah, I would probably say that one. Yeah. Any of them, actually. Any of the Mario Karts would be a win for me.
That used to be my previous employment before I opened up the cafe. We all, in my department, were all in like a small office, and every one of us had a Switch, so come lunchtimes it was just Mario Kart tournaments.
That's amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, there was several occasions where we just weren't talking to each other by the end of it, sort of thing.
Did you have a favourite course?
I'd probably say Rainbow Road was mine.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely
I was
love
about to say
Rainbow
Rainbow Road is 100% my favourite. I don't know why people don't like it.
What is wrong with you?
What?
No way!
What?
No way!
I'll tell you what the dividing factor is here, and that is Rainbow Road is the only track in Mario Kart that requires you to use the brake. So if you don't like using the brake, then you're gonna hate Rainbow Road. If you like using the brake, then you're gonna love it.
Yeah.
How long did you spend in the Mario 64 Mario Kart 64 trying to do that bit where you jump off the very start on Rainbow Road? There's this little stretch,
and you can
where
end
you
up back
jump
at
off the edge, and it'll drop you back on the other side, like you've done a whole lap.
Never pulled it off.
Never did it.
Never.
No.
Yeah, no, I tried every year.
I had so many magazines that had screenshots of exactly where it doesn't work. Doesn't work. I'm not good enough.
My earliest memories were playing the very first Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo, and my mind being blown when you figured out the secret button combination to shrink your character down on the level select screen. It's like, you can do that?
This is going to sound like a cop-out, but I've never really loved the competitive aspect of games. I love cooperative games. I love games where you kind of get into teamwork and that sort of thing. Which is why I'm always been drawn to Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that, where essentially you're just working together to tell a story and that sort of thing. And actually the kind of like that bonding aspect, that sort of like thing is what I've always liked. So like whatever game I'm having the most fun with, I suppose is the answer to like what I would choose. Having said that, the professional or esports aspect of games like World of Warcraft really fascinate me. I've played a few MMOs in my time, and actually what you find is that it isn't the people who succeed are very rarely the people who kind of like are naturally the best at these things. It's usually the people who have the best coordination as interpersonal coordination. Can you organize 25 people to get to the same place at the same time and be there for the next 200 hours to defeat one boss. If you can keep that many people in the same place at the same time for that long, then you have succeeded at the game.
You've already won.
That's my idea of the best game in the world, is just trying to...
Rounding people up.
It's teamwork.
I'll throw a quick question in here then, given we're on about this. What was all of yours first experience with online gaming?
Online gaming.
Ooh, interesting.
So I remember going to a bowling alley. This isn't necessarily online gaming, it's actually LAN gaming.
Yeah.
I remember going to a bowling alley and playing there, because I think my first experience with online gaming was probably Xbox 360.
Okay.
Talking Halo 3.
Halo 3?
Yeah, I never really jumped on it before then, because I just didn't have the hardware.
That's fair enough.
It might be the same, because I think it might have been original Xbox, because I think I bought Phantasy Star Online without having a modem, without having a router, I should say. And I didn't know how Xbox Live worked, and I didn't know how online gaming worked, but I decided I wanted to play Phantasy Star Online, and I didn't ever play it. I never got to play it because I was sort of like, I never quite figured it out.
Yeah.
But then, things like EverQuest were around, EverQuest 2 and all that sort of stuff, and I was like, RuneScape is a big one, right? Like those games where you could play in the browser. There was no barrier to entry. You could just jump in. So those probably were where my the earliest things came in.
Kitty?
I've only had a brief foray into the online gaming world. That was with World of Warcraft. Someone tried to get me into it. They were just like, check it out, there's this whole world, and it did look kind of fun, but it just didn't click for me.
No, that's fair enough. I think mine would have had to have been Command & Conquer on PC.
Wow.
So it's going back some time now. I think I was doing that before we got the my first PlayStation, I think. But I really enjoyed that back then.
So that is correct if I'm wrong, Mike, but that's a very competitive place to start.
Yes, it was, and I think at one point now don't think there was that many people playing on that area, but I think at one point I managed to get within like the top 1,000 ranked matches at one point for a very short period of time.
That's still amazing though.
But this was still going back in the days where before broadband was a thing. So the minute somebody picked up the phone, that was it. You were kicked out of the game. And
that's a trial by fire though. Having those RTS's real-time strategy for that reason has always kind of daunted me. StarCraft and all that sort of stuff because it's just you. I don't know how to learn when it's just me failing over and over again. Yeah. Whereas, if I'm in a team or if I'm sort of watching other players and seeing how they do it, then maybe I can sort of start to collect some experiences, some secondhand experience, and sort of work my way up the ladder. But I think it's fascinating how you can sort of just jump on a game and go, I'm just going to get better at this. The kind of fog of war is obscuring my vision of my opponent. I don't know what they're doing, but in a minute there's an army coming, and I've got to do something about it.
I think it's one of them. Cause I think it's the same with most online games. It's the minute you play the single player is always very different from the actual online stuff. You'll get through your single player campaigns. Yeah, I can play this. I'm really good. And then the minute you jump into online and you just get owned by somebody, and you're I'm really rubbish. Yeah.
You know what I've just realised? I have actually played an online game. But I don't think it's one. It's called Journey.
Yes.
I watched my partner play it through, and it was just him sort of doing the journey, checking out this really cool world and having to collect things and avoid things, etc., etc. It's got a bit of a Legend of Zelda feel to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I was, that's really pretty. I want to go. And as I sort of appeared in the starting spot, someone else appeared next to me, and it was just some online player.
Yeah.
At the end of the game,
communicate with them, can
no,
you? Over them through
you can
chirps and
yes, you can sing to each other, which in the game, and this is so beautiful, you can sing to each other to sort of gain health. So there was this really tough part where we were both climbing this mountain, and we were just singing to each other through the blizzard, and just sort of you can see the little the health going up, and just sort of it was a very sort of desperate scene within the game. But yeah, that was really interesting, not being able to communicate at all. But I kind of felt neither of us needed to hang around each other at all. We could have just done the game however we liked. But it just kind of seemed kind of natural to just sort of we've got somebody here, we'll just stick together and do this. And at the end of the game, it says, and you played with somebody, I think it was somebody from Japan.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was a really great experience just for gaming, and quite unusual in online gaming, I think.
And it's completely random, isn't it? And all the people you get paired up with, sort of thing. It's not like you can invite somebody in to play the game, is it? Or
no. So when my partner played it, it was literally just because he spawned at that sort of starting time on his own. I just happened to, just simply by chance, someone else just logged into the game at the same time as me, and we just started at the same spot, and we could see each other. When I started playing the game, I had no idea that would happen, but it was really, I really like the idea of online games, just the idea of lots of people who you don't know just all doing that one thing together.
Those chance encounters.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's people that you wouldn't otherwise meet, and you're doing something that's kind of fun, and you don't have to speak the same language or anything like that. You can just game. It's really nice.
Really cool. Journey's a very special game to me as well, actually.
Yeah.
one of my favourites, I think, of all time because of that exact same experience, except like my experience was just different, and like it's a game that you play over and over again. It's like something that explores like the cycle of storytelling and the fact that you go from being an initiate who doesn't know anything about the world and to a tutor. So I had this experience where I came across someone and I'd figured out what I was doing in this one area, but they didn't know what they were doing. They were jumping around all over the place, and I was like, no, if you come over here, there's a little flag, you can do this whole thing. And I helped him out because I just got a little bit of experience. But then he went off too far away from me. I lost him. I didn't know where he was. And I sort of felt a little bit like, we could have gone further together. But then someone dressed in these all white robes, sort of like someone experienced with this kind of this very sort of ornamented persona came to me. I bumped into them, and like halfway through this journey for the first time, and they were clearly more knowledgeable than me. They taught me loads of things. They found me loads of little secrets that are hidden behind walls, and kind of really was my mentor. And then in that exact last scene you were describing, well, one of the later scenes where it's this big long like slog up a mountain in this blizzard. You've got to take cover behind these little areas, and I split off just a little.
Spoilers, but there's the monster, isn't there? That's kind of
there's the big blizzard, and you sort of I just split off just briefly, and I lost touch with my mentor at the final hurdle, and that was for me this amazing thing, because then the game kind of I played the game again, but this time I knew all the places that the guy had shown me. I was the mentor this time. You know,
were in the white robes.
Exactly. I'd gained a little bit of prestige, and I'd become that, and that for me just says so much about not just life, any experience of learning, teaching. It's a perfect example of games as art through the personal interactions that Kitty was talking about. I just think that's fascinating. That's what got me hooked into online gaming in terms of the MMO sort of space, because the same thing happens just on a more granular level.
It's such a beautiful game, that, and I think they tell you at the end, don't they? So when you finish it and it says you played with this person, and I remember first time through thinking this is a computer. But then they do the odd weird thing. You're like, that's not a computer. Or that's some really good AI. And then at the end of the game, they say, no, it was this person. This is their name. And you're like, oh my god, that's awesome. So magical. I love it. We started talking about competitive games, and we're so wholesome.
We started talking about the most cooperative game you can think of.
Yeah, it's just purely helping. I like that. Okay. So, well then, there's actually one more event that I kind of wanted to talk about that's going on in Sheffield, and that's actually happening in the same building that we're recording this podcast, which is the Castle House building over with the team at Curious Arts. Huge thanks to Alex and Joe, who are literally sat just next to us, but not actually saying anything because they're helping us with this podcast today. So this event is happening on the 13th of February, and it is being run by kind of Barclays Eagle Labs, and it is essentially an open day. We're kind of opening the doors to the building for people to come along if they're involved in games, or kind of they work in games, they live games, etc. You can kind of, if you check in the description of this podcast, you can find a link to kind of contact the Barclays people, and you can come along and just kind of see what's going on in the building, because not just is the National Video Game Museum in here, and not just that we have Meltdown and Extra Life just kind of right outside, but there's actually a bunch of things happening, like game incubators and they're incubating small tech companies in here as well, which is really, really good and really exciting. So I would recommend coming along to that. I know I am going to be there. Are either of you going to come along to that event?
I think I might as well. It seems like a shame to pass up the opportunity, to be honest.
Yeah, well, the galleries in the museum will be open, so we can play some games.
Amazing.
Well. Yes, and, staff and business permitting, I'm hoping to be there as well. So.
Yes. Well, I think it'd be really cool, because if anybody is listening to this podcast and they think, I'm from Sheffield and I love games and I know lots about games, we want to hear from you, I suppose. We want to kind of, grow this kind of community, chat with everybody who kind of knows about games, really kind of bring everyone together. I think that's kind of a big part of it. We want to be the people in the white robes
Aww.
But for everyone in Sheffield and kind of help other people kind of grow and help this Sheffield kind of gaming community grow, it's already pretty massive.
Yeah, definitely.
To be honest, and there's so much going on, but we just kind of want to talk about it and shout about it, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's join us on this journey to try and make Sheffield feel like we were saying before. Sheffield is full of very, very talented people working in games, both analog and digital, and games adjacent fields as well. Illustration and all those kind of places. I really think it's a shame that it's not more centralized, that there aren't more places to meet up and really explore that, because you could find you can find the pool of kind of talent where you're inspired to make the next step into making games and that sort of thing. An event like this. So,
and even if you're not in the industry as such, there's people out there with so much passion for the video games who want to know more and just get more involved in it. Makes it easy for them to come down and get involved as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ace. So like I said, come on down to the event if that sounds like of interest to you. Come and meet up with us, find us. I'll be wandering around. I'll be the guy with the rainbow lanyard. So if you see someone walking around with a rainbow lanyard, it's probably me. If there are more than one person in a rainbow lanyard, I apologise to that person.
I'm going to wear a rainbow lanyard just to spoil that. Yeah.
Or actually, if you want to get in touch with us digitally, you can catch us over on Twitter. We have started a Sheffield Gaming Twitter account just to kind of capture and kind of collate all this info, which is at Sheffield Gaming as well. Our DMs are open, so please do slide on in, I suppose. It's okay. So I think we're gonna have to wrap it up because I think our time is kind of running out. So before I do, I just wanted to ask everyone around the table now, what is going on with you and where can kind of people find you day to day? Matt?
Okay, you can usually find me at the Treehouse Board Game Cafe on Boston Street, and we have a ton of stuff going on. I'm involved in kind of the role-playing section, Treehouse Worlds, that we do. So if you go to treehousesheffield.com, that's where you can find everything that we do. /events is where is how you can find what's going on. There's all sorts of games, board games, kind of playtesting nights going on. We've got meeting people up that you don't know to play games, and as well as the role-playing stuff that I do. That's at treehousesheffield.com/role-playing, where you can either, if you're interested in getting into role-playing, Dungeons & Dragons or any other kind of system, you can always give us a message. We can do run kind of custom sessions for your friends. If it's a first taster, you've never done it before, but you've always wondered whether you want to get into it, or you can kind of get involved in one of our seasons where we do kind of 6 consecutive weeks where we sort of run a nicely kind of wrought story that we work very, very hard on, and you can jump in on that table and sort of experience that. So loads of different ways that you can get involved in. We're actually doing now also level 1 kind of one-shots, which is to say they're I think they're on Tuesdays, and we are basically like, if you've never played Dungeons & Dragons before and you are really hesitant and you're like, I want something that's completely for new players, then you can do that. You can go over there, book yourself into one of those, and just have the experience that will set you up going forward as a role player.
Nice, excellent.
Awesome. And Mike?
So you can find me at Extra Life Gaming Lounge, which is on Commercial Street, just up from Ponds Forge. We have, again, all sorts going off there. As we've mentioned, we've got the Geeky Craft Market coming up. We also have regular weekly events. So we have our Throwback Tuesdays, which is a retro video game competition where we run for 5 weeks on a retro game. Whoever has the highest score at the end of the 5 weeks on that game wins a free meal for 2, and they get their face on our ever-growing wall of fame. We also do the Saturday morning cartoons, as mentioned, and a D&D Thursdays, which we do in the evenings, which is a very casual kind of just fun night of D&D. We have ongoing campaigns as well as one-shots, things like that, but they're for anyone of all experience, free to enter.
So rad.
And we also have at the end of the month a Super Smash Bros competition coming up as well, which should be good fun for those of you who are interested in that. We are open every day other than Monday, because that's my need for sleep at some point. But other than that, yeah, so you can find all the information on Extra Life Gaming Lounge on Facebook at Extra Life Gaming Lounge Sheffield, has everything that we're doing on there and all upcoming events, including, like I mentioned, the Geeky Craft Market, which Kitty's organising. So yeah, so check that out for all upcoming events and information. We'd love to see you down there.
Nice. And then, yeah, so Kitty, what is it kind of, what are you up to? Oh, we know what you're up to. We spoke about it a little bit, but...
Yeah. So, at the moment, it'll be the Geeky Craft Market.
Yeah.
There is a Facebook event page. You can... so that is on my pixel art page. So if you go on Facebook and search for Sheffield Culture Vulture and click on events, the Geeky Craft Market will be there. There's still space for stall holders. If anybody's thinking, I make geeky things... How do I get involved? It's all on the event page, or you can just message me on the Sheffield Culture Vulture page as well. Yeah. That's that.
Ace, and just like Kitty, you can find us both at the National Video Game Museum, which is open obviously on Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays. There's lots going on there. I might talk about that in a future podcast. But yes, so you can also find me personally over on Twitter as well, under Chrono Cleon, and all this stuff will be in the description of this podcast, so have a quick peek down there as well. So thank you all so much for listening, and we'll be back soon.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Sheffield Gaming Podcast. If you want to get involved, check us out on Twitter over at Sheffield Gaming. This podcast was recorded at the Curious Arts Podcast Studio in the Castle House building. Intro and outro music was provided by the ultra-talented Harley Likes Music. Find more of Harley's tracks over at harleylikesmusic.com. I've been Connor Clark from the National Video Game Museum. See you soon.